Can you guys hear me okay over there, or are we gonna maybe pull a little closer? I feel like I'm screaming here if I get talking too loud. So, and since this is gonna be the coolest demo of the day and the most fun and most productive, you don't want to miss a word. So, anyway, my name's Jay Sheffield. I live up north of Libby. I hunt almost all my seasons in the Yak area. So, considering that the type of calling I do is much closer terrain, this stuff like right in here would be a gift to me. Primarily the area I hunt looks like this river valley back here. It's thick, old growth timber a lot of times. So while my basic premises and techniques will work certainly in open country, obviously, you know, I watch these videos and I see these guys, they're calling across mountaintops and they're watching a herd of elk come in, or excuse me, a herd of pack of wolves come across there, through all the animals, come right over to them 2 miles away. And I can't imagine how cool that would be to be able to see that personally. Because generally when I see an elk in timber country, it's measured in yards, okay? So as just a little bit of background, I've taken a number of wolves, all by hunting, one with a longbow, which is a personal favorite of mine, but the furthest until last year was 45 yards. And that was one of my longest. Most of them were under 25 yards. So it's close timber. So that's what makes it extremely exciting. So when you're sitting there hunkered into your bush trying to make the sounds and become the prey, it's pretty intense when you've got several of them come trotting in looking to hunt. So I've got some notes here just to kind of keep me on track. But when you're talking about Paul being a lone wolf, you've got to be into solitude and remoteness, because if you're not, this isn't a group thing. If there's 3 guys trying to drag out through the woods, I think you're going to make way too much noise and be way too much movement. So while the wolves are really cued into the scent aspect, I'll tell you one thing I don't give them enough credit for that has really changed my success is how visually oriented they are. And I'm not talking yards, I'm talking significant distances. They can see way better than I would equate with my dog. I've seen them alert on animals that are literally a half mile, and they're looking at them, not seeing the movement. They're just seeing something out there, and you can see them focus. It's really incredible. So that's one big tip I give people, is really consider how visually adept they are. It is what I think has probably betrayed me in my early days more than anything. So not big on war stories, but I like to give a few stories that are kind of teachable moments, because there's a lot of information packed in a little 5-minute scenario. Obviously the very basics. Basic gear, you're hunting remote. You're not going to do this sitting on the side of the road. You're not going to be able to roll down the dirt road with the rifle out the window like some of the deer hunters do. This is remote stuff. So prepare accordingly. Take serious consideration of your personal physical skills. How fit are you? How far can you go safely? Is it a nice, September day? Are we talking about wintertime where we're post-hole and we need snowshoes? So take that into consideration. We all used to living in the mountains, so give real serious deference to the weather conditions also. Those are the things that'll come back and bite you. Obviously you need all your basic gear, which is a well-outfitted pack. With as far as your water, your food, maybe some extra clothing, all the things you would need for remote. How am I going to get by if something bad happens? Because a lot of this happens in timber, a lot of it happens in blowdown, and those are recipes for frosty blowdown logs for getting yourself twisted up. So really give that a lot of serious consideration. I always take a hiking stick. I'm not as young as I used to be, but most importantly, not only does it give me stability going through that stuff, it also gives me a little modified rest if I need to just sit here, have that stick. So I like to be sitting when I'm shooting and when I'm calling. It also gives me the ability to give me a bit of a tripod or a bipod type of a stability, a stabilizer. So obviously your clothing is appropriate for the conditions. So we do a lot of this in the fall, where there's a lot of transitions between in the mornings it can be really cold, it can get hot in the afternoon, it can also be snowing in late September. So dress accordingly, be aware of what your conditions are. Guns. Everybody talks about guns. We do not need the latest Mega Blaster 2000, with a 5 to 50x scope. Maybe some of those long-range boys over, on the east side or some of these big open areas. Northwest Montana, it's going to be in the timber. and you'll be lucky if you can see 100 yards, let alone 200. So the most important considerations for your guns is take something you're used to, okay? Take your favorite deer rifle. I tell people, I said, the varmint rifles are great, but a 223 or a 22-250 is not what I would want to count on when I have the first wolf I've ever hunted, and I've spent all season hunting, and here he is, and I put a 45 or 50 grain slug into him. Will it kill him? Absolutely. Does it need to be a well-placed shot? Absolutely. But there's also, they're not bulletproof, but these guys are incredibly tenacious. They will spin, they will run, and if it's dry ground, good luck on trying to find that thing. It is tough. So I tell people, take something that would be appropriate for taking deer. Probably talking about a bare minimum of 100 grain, fairly well constructed bullet. So we'll call it a 243, 308s, 30-06s, 270s. Any of that stuff will work wonderfully. You're probably going to be more familiar with it. And more importantly, is it gives you the opportunity to take a shot at any angle. Because if I'm shooting I normally carry a 308 or a 7.62 by 39, which is basically the AK round out of an AR. That 30 grain bullet, 125 grainer, running 23 to 2700. I can take a Texas heart shot with that one if I need to. Okay, that's not what I'm wanting to do. Always try and get him up there in the chest. But if that's the shot I have, and I can guarantee that it's got a straight flight path to the vital organs, I want something that'll do that. It also gives a significant more, a little more whack to them. I know people that have shot them with the 223s, and I know two of my friends that have lost them with 223s. So like I said, were those wolves dead? Yes, but the problem is they're dead 150 yards into there, and on dry ground, snow, maybe a different ball game. But I really lean to a heavier bullet and to a rifle that you're comfortable with. Talking about scopes. If you can want to designate a rifle, if you got a 1 to 4 or 1 to 6, maybe a 2 to 7 or even a 3 to a 9, those are all great. The serious thing to consider is the field of view. Anytime you're hunting, that scope needs to be turned all the way down, okay? You don't want it on 9X if you're pulling up and you're trying to shoot a wolf literally at the rear tire of that blue truck right there, okay? The 9X, if they're up there on that hillside, you got all the time in the world to dial it in, okay? But you want to be prepared for the close-in, wide field of view. So have that thing dialed down. The lower the better, as far as I'm concerned, because the field of view is critical. If you're calling, even in this type of thing, if you had a stand right here on this table and you were just covering this area, who couldn't make this shot with a 1X or a 2X, right? So you don't need that high-end magnification. So be aware of that. A lot of these scopes nowadays have red dot or a dot in the center reticle. So that's what I run on mine because it just is so much faster. So having that, I shoot loophole VXRs, and those scopes all have what they call a fire dot. Many of the brands have them nowadays. So that dot, which lights up and you can adjust the intensity, just gives you, because there's a lot going on, guys, when you're inside 50 yards and you got 4 wolves moving towards you. And they're not running away, they're coming in because you're making some great sounds here. They're looking for an injured animal, a fawn deer, a fawn elk. So they're coming in pretty hot, and they're coming in, and if you haven't experienced it before, it's kind of a rush. So the less you have to think about, the more you can focus on making that shot. And if you're earlier in the morning, if you're later in the evening, you're trying to put black crosshairs on a dark colored animal on the move, it's a little bit complicated. So once again, if you're picking through your safe of what you've got, or you're going to look for a new scope, I would highly recommend having a dot, because that just takes your eye right to the center, and you just put that right there, and obviously it's in the center of your crosshairs. You put that right there on the chest of the animal and you let it go. So that's a real serious consideration. You don't have to go buy something new, but if you're buying something new specifically for this purpose, it's a great option. Aiming points. Obviously, we all know, if you're shooting a big game animal, behind the shoulder, third of the way up. These are probably 65 to 100, 105 pound animals. Biggest one I shot on the certified scale was 104, have one at 100, 103. So they're big, but they're incredibly stout. So yes, if you hit them with something like a 30-06 or a 308, nice lung shot, that's going to put them down hard. I like to swing just a little farther forward. If you're taking out a shoulder in that shot, whether you're aiming from this side trying to catch the off shoulder, or you have it on this side, two reasons. One, it anchors them hard, and two, there's secondary shrapnel from the shoulder blade going through there, because what we want to do is we want to guarantee, because trust me, when you have the opportunity to shoot this wolf, you will have earned it, because you will spend many a day. This is not something you're going to do the first weekend you go out looking around. This is hard. So do everything you can to maximize putting them down and putting them down hard on the first shot. The other thing I'll tell you is, like I said, you may sit here and think, okay, I've got 4 wolves coming in and I can see 2 here. 2 things. I take the first ethical available shot. I might see a smaller gray one, and then there's the big black one behind them. But you got to understand at the distances we're not talking about shooting them out there as far as those cattle or up on that hill where you may have an opportunity to select and say, oh, I like that big white one, or I want that, dark one, whatever your choice is. When they're in close in the woods, it doesn't even matter if it's a calm day or what the wind is. In the mountains, and along stream beds, whatever, there is enough wind moving around inside your 25-yard bubble that you need to take the first legit shot. I passed on some beautiful big wolves to take a smaller wolf because I knew literally they were closer than that red truck right there, that every second I screw around, there's 4 or 5 of them, their ears are on, their noses are on, and they're looking. So if they see me moving, they're just going to be gone. And it's not, they don't sit and look, they don't stare, they don't think, well, what did I see over there? If something spooks them, they are gone. And if one goes, they explode like a covey of quail. So the first ethical shot you have is the one you need to take. So be set up for that. If you're anticipating, because you've kind of called or you've howled or you've located them, you think, hey, they're down this, where this lake is here. I get set up. Obviously, I'm trying to aim that direction, have my scope dialed down, have my rifle at the ready. And you can literally, if you have a bipod or, some little, something to support your rifle with you, you can literally blow, work your call, and be very discreet about just shifting down and onto the trigger, because when it happens, it'll happen real quick. They don't blow trumpets, there's no big band coming out in front of them. All of a sudden, you're just going to look, and 1 second there's nothing, and the next second there's 1 or 2 wolves standing there looking at you. So it happens fast, so, be ready. The other thing is, once you hit them and they're down, spin just a moment. Just hover, obviously, if you're shooting a bolt gun or whatever, cycle that round, stay on them for just a second, because I've had them get up, start to move. You want to put them down before you start looking for number 2, because once again, we don't want to lose one of these things that we have worked this hard to get. So that's my best advice on that. Hover on that one for a second until it is flat, because there is nothing worse than seeing one get up and start to either spin or take off, get lined out. Sometimes they'll spin for a second, just kind of like a coyote, get their feet underneath them, and boom, they're gone. So if you had the opportunity to hit it again because it's still kicking on the ground, take that opportunity. I understand everybody wants to get a double. Lord knows everybody wants to try and get a triple. But a double and a triple starts with 1 dead one on the ground, right? Doesn't start with a wounded one in the woods and now we're shooting at other runners. We nail this one and we go to the next one. So, calls. 2 obviously main categories. We got mouth calls, hand calls, and we have electronics. I've got both. This ironically, this is probably 15, 16 years old. It's a little Fox Pro. It's called a Scorpion. It's a tiny little thing. I have it. There's a few places I like to use it because one of the big considerations we have around here is that if we're calling wolves, that's great habitat. Any place that's great habitat for wolves is great habitat for grizzly bears. All right, so if I'm going into a spot where I really think this is legit grizzly area or I'm seeing fresh grizzly sign, occasionally I'll break out that electronic call just because I don't want to be the focus of all this. But literally, 99% of the time, I greatly prefer to use a hand call. And there's very simple reasons. One, hand call is tiny. Here, this little one of my favorites, is around my neck. So I can control the volume, I can control the cadence, I can control the intensity of it, all by just reading what's going on. If I see him out there a little ways, or I'm hearing him, or I think I'm hearing movement, I can control whether I want to make a sound or whether I want to sit quiet. And these are all serious considerations, because